Welcome to Brokers Digest, a weekly webcast by The Edge Singapore, where we discover stock opportunities with you. This episode is made possible by TD Ameritrade Singapore.
Hi, hello, and good afternoon, and welcome back to this week's Brokers Digest. I'm Gula Warden, and in this week's episode, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of yields stocks versus growth stocks with Chris Brankin, CEO of TD Ameritrade. Hi, Chris. Hope you've had a good start to the week.
Oh, great, Gula. Thanks for having me on. It was just our third part of our 13-week series. So excited about to kind of look at yields and some other little bits and pieces of what's going on in the news right now.
Yes, okay. So before we jump into this week's topic, our audience had some questions from last week's episode. Okay, so the first one, we've got two questions. So the first one is, what is the outlook of Chinese technology stocks listed on NYSE and Nasdaq ahead of the November US elections and the ongoing tension between the US and China? And we've had some big news over the weekend, haven't we? Yeah.
Yes. I think going into the U.S. elections, I think everyone was anticipating a little bit more volatility, especially around some of the tech-related names that are Chinese-based. Now, this last weekend, we threw a little extra spice into the soup, so to speak, with Trump and his administration looking to ban TikTok and WeChat in the United States. To me, and I think to investors, around the globe, they look at this as just another kind of area of concern. So as our investors at TD Ameritrade are looking for clarity, we're getting this extra layer of, we'll call it negotiation. Now, is this part and parcel of how Trump and his administration have, do business? And is it some type of leveraging tool that they're going to look to go forward, with China going into the election period? All that is uncertain, but what we do know is if you ban TikTok and WeChat, or try to anyways, that's going to add some concerns in the marketplace and around the Chinese technology companies that are listed on the NYSE and Nasdaq. These are just areas that might add to some near-term choppiness. So I think as you look at it and as our investors look to where they're going to place their dollars, this might cause some concern and in order to maybe, kind of take their foot off the accelerator, so to speak, on some of these names until they get a little more information about what's going on.
So just related to this, would TikTok have been good or not so great for Oracle and Walmart? Is it that both of them are had planned to buy TikTok?
Well, look, when it first came out, or it was Microsoft or Oracle, and then Oracle kind of looked like it was going to be a done deal, and along with Walmart, in terms of scale and capability and being able to, kind of help TikTok, kind of grow across the U.S. Oracle has all that infrastructure in place. Oracle is designed to kind of help build some of that. So I kind of a disappointment at this point that markets aren't kind of seeing that deal actually going to come to fruition, because Oracle's well positioned in order to be able to do that, and and it's interesting to see not only from their capability, but there's also lots of people that are very addicted to the tools and products that are on TikTok, and I think my daughter being one of them, and along with many other people across the globe that are on these short digestible videos on a daily and regular type basis.
Okay. Before we move on to the next question, we would like to know what our audience looks out for in their investment strategy. So could you choose your answer in the poll now? Okay. So the next question is, are your customers interested in Snowflake, the recent IPO that Warren Buffett participated in?
Look, largest IPO listing ever. So we saw lots of interest and lots of kind of queries around it. We probably saw more interest from our U.S. based customers, but we also had lots of interest in terms of what our Asian based customers are doing as well. Look, it's the largest based IPO, tech based IPO ever. You got Warren Buffett behind it. People want to know how they get involved with it. So I think what we like to explain to our customers, especially from the retail perspective, is when an IPO garners lots of public interest and headline, and people want to get involved with that. Now, it's not always as simple as I want to participate in that IPO, because unless you have an account, with the underwriting, bank or company that's bringing them the stock to market, and you have a long-term relationship, it is difficult to get any type of percentage of that IPO. So what most people are able to do is participate on a secondary market. So when it gets listed on the market, then you have the ability to purchase that stock. Now, there's a couple little nuances that, that people need to pay close attention to. So if you receive stock in the IPO, normally you can't sell that stock for the first 90 days. Once you buy the stock in the secondary market, there's generally no short selling for the first 3 days. Mm-hmm. So it's really a one-sided market at the beginning of the market, so if you see the IPO is garnered lots of headline interest, it's oversubscribed, you see it pricing towards the higher range of, the IPO placement period. Generally, you see kind of that stock run up over the first few days, especially in something like Snowflake that has Warren Buffett, largest, tech IPO ever. So it is something that has been driving that interest, and we will look for that to continue here over the next few days and weeks.
Okay. So we've had some volatility in the market in the past week. The SPX, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq indices closed lower. We lost 0.64% on the SPX and 0.56% on the Nasdaq. So I'm just wondering, is there a flight to safety? Because we've had lots of price growth in the tech sector.
This is, we're highlight, the 10 U.S. mega cap yield stocks. So a lot of these stocks have been maybe under some selling pressure, but these are kind of fits that Warren Buffett playbook of the value. Stocks, what stocks are showing good yields. Now, some of these yields are up significantly where they would normally be because their stocks have sold off from where they were, back at the beginning part of the year. So some areas, to look at is if investors are looking for potential, rolling into cyclicals or into value type plays, is what areas have not only yield, but some potential growth. So telcos have always been a big area of yield, with AT&T currently, 7.2% yield, Verizon over 4%. These are areas that, do we have some potential area for some market appreciation? And if we are going to stay in this price range for a while, and really important, and here is that the companies do not cut or suspend their dividends, is that these dividends are very attractive looking, at over 7% and over 4%. You have some of the big banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, kind of right around that 3% yield area. Also an area, if we see the economy start to come back, that we start to potentially see some market appreciation in these stocks as well. Pfizer, big one, all over the news these days, especially, in the pharmaceutical space as a whole. Is there some growth potential there? Absolutely. If we can get some type of vaccine or therapeutic, which Pfizer's been working on. And in the meantime, their stock has been under some pressure from where it was, from its 52-week high. So we're getting a yield of about 4%. So you see, kind of nice mix of some of these stocks that from the big banks, telcos, pharmaceuticals. These are areas that, as you look for yield, yield is important, but you also want to make sure that, are these, potential value? Is there some market appreciation? If we see some of the things that people are potentially predicting in terms of economic recovery, demand, or on the pharmaceutical side, do we actually see some type of therapeutic or vaccine? So definitely something, an area that our clients at TD Ameritrade are constantly looking for is yield and value.
So those are the mega caps. Now we've got the large cap yield stocks, and these are interesting. Now just have a look at these. Can you see them, Chris? The biggest one is Norton, and it's got a huge yield. Is it going under, or what's happening there? And Occidental Petroleum. They're all energy. A lot of them are energy stocks.
Yes. So look, I think this is really important. This is a nice segue to look at, okay, people look for yield, but now when you start seeing certain yields, and especially if we look at the energy sector, a lot of the companies would have suspended or cut their dividend because the energy markets were under such pressure for most of 2020. The ones that haven't cut their dividend, as long as they are in a solid space, you see these dividends, these yields are very attractive levels. Now, this is where I think you need to pay a little bit close attention to some other parts of it. If you look at like the first one listed on here, Norton LifeLock, look, it's got a negative operating cash flow, kind of a red flag. It's got negative free cash flow. It's got this, 60% dividend yield. Probably something I would, investors are going to look a little bit closer into because that there's some red flags right there. You have some of these energy markets, so you have Occidental Petroleum, so they have looked at, reducing some of their dividend, but their yields are very attractive right now, and they're, but there are lots of analysts that are that basically think this stock might be undervalued. I'm not, so paying close attention to that. That doesn't mean that they won't suspend or cut some of these dividends on some of these energy stocks, especially as they have this large burn rate of cash going on as energy markets have been under significant amount of pressure. And then even some things that aren't listed on here, like the big oil majors, Exxon Mobil, it's over 9% yield. Chevron's over 6%. But these stocks, they basically have committed saying that, hey, we're going to continue to pay our dividends because we think that we have, the resources and the cash flow to be able to do that. So I think as you're looking at stocks that at their dividends get to certain levels, you got to make sure that the underlying health of the actual company is there to a point that you are confident enough that dividend will remain in place, because that is very important. Dividends are something that can be removed, overnight, can be cut, can be suspended. But, so I think if you look at the overall dividend history, it's very important to me as well, and customers as they are looking at potential yield play, especially on these higher, large cap yield stocks.
Okay, thanks. So we've come to the end of this week's Brokers Digest. We're almost out of time, I'm afraid. But that's been a very interesting session, Chris. Thanks so much for your insights. And for the audience, thank you for participating in the poll. We shall discuss the results during the next session. Like us on Facebook to get alerted to next week's episode. And if you have topics you wish for us to discuss, do leave them in the comments. Or if you would like the slides of the yields of the large cap yield stocks and the mega cap yield stocks, Warren Buffett's portfolio, do let us know on Facebook. So thanks, Chris, and we'll see you next Monday, 28th September. So it's bye from us in the studio, and...
All right, thanks, Gula. Bye from me.
Bye from Chris.
Well, thank you.
Bye.